Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Huddle. I am your guest host, Dr. Monikah Ogando, standing in for Gio and for Sorrel today on this lovely Friday. And we're going to be talking more about internal business leadership today, because the topic for today is, what is the difference between personal development and spiritual growth? And I was joking with Gio yesterday when he asked me to stand in for him, because I was like, oh, so you just want like Thursday part 2. Because Thursday spiritual matters. And so it's a pour over, how sometimes you have a pour over will in your estate planning. So this is going to be a pour over topic. And I have a quote for you today. The privilege of a lifetime is the privilege of knowing yourself. That's by Carl Jung. Welcome to the Daily Huddle. Yes, yes. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Let's get grounded on what we're doing today. Andrea, how are you and who are you thankful for? Or what are you thankful for?
I am the way I say I am, and today I'm inspired. And I am grateful. I've been grateful for this Daily Huddle this week that I'm back. So yeah, that I'm grateful for all of you guys.
Awesome, awesome. That's great. Kurt, where are you and who are you hugging today?
All right. Well, I'm at home. I'm in Milwaukee and I'm hugging my daughter and wife. And you talked about being grateful. I throw in there that I'm grateful for health insurance because, you got to be able to take care of ourselves and have the services we need.
All right. Blessings abound. I love it. Good stuff, good stuff. Well, I want to talk about today, what is the difference between personal development and spiritual growth? And I guess it depends, right? It depends on the assumptions out of which we are operating so that we can have this discussion. As always, one of our tenets here that I fought tooth and nail to get into our Daily Huddle culture is audit your assumptions. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. And so one of the assumptions that sometimes we operate under, even this government was founded under, is that there is a separation between church and state, that there's a separation between who we are as a person and who we are in our spiritual lives, that there's a difference there, that there's a separation there. And if we were to operate under that assumption, we would have a very different conversation than if we were to operate under the assumption that your spiritual life is who you are. And to the extent that you negate that or put it to the side or minimize it, etc., in a way you are negating your own personhood. That's another possible assumption that we can make. And if we were to make that assumption, we would have a completely different conversation. I'm going to state that my personal stance on this is that there's only one game in town, and that is you becoming the best version of yourself so that you can connect with others and inspire or equip or assist them in becoming the best version of who they are. And therefore, your personal development is a tool for your spiritual enlightenment. That's where I stand. But I would like to have a conversation with you all about it because I don't know where you stand. And then depending on where you stand, what does that look like, right? So for me, based on my stand, what that looks like is there are certain stretches that I put myself on so that I can develop myself. So for example, one of the more simple ones, but surprisingly difficult stretches that I've put myself under lately has been to use no profanity. Now you might think that's not a stretch. Yes, it is. When you have a potty mouth like me, this is a stretch. This is a challenge. And nobody told me to do that. I wasn't doing it because like, oh, it's a sin to curse. No. It wasn't anything like that. It was more like, dang, Monikah, you really gonna let a habit get the best of you? So it was more like me against me. It was more like who I say that I am versus who I know that I could be. So let me put myself on a stretch of doing something that feels uncomfortable, that I'm not used to, that allows me to use more of my vocabulary so that I could become a better version of myself. Not because I find anything wrong with using profanity. I love it. I enjoy it very much. So that's an example, right? Another example could be if you take on something that you are particularly fearful or uncomfortable about. Many people have a fear of or discomfort of public speaking. And so they'll join something like Toastmasters, or they'll join something like even like the Daily Huddle and being a guest expert in podcasts and so forth, so they can hear their own voice, so they can figure out and articulate where they stand on certain things, and sharing their opinions and seeing that, oh, okay, it's not dangerous. I have a subconscious fear of doing this, and now I'm putting myself in places where I have to do it, and then therefore the fear mitigates. So that's another example. And I would love to hear from you where you stand. Is personal development the same for you as your spiritual enlightenment, or are they different things? Do they fall under different departments? And if so, what does that look like in your life? Who wants to share? Who wants to go first? Who has something to say?
Hey, doctor.
Hi.
Hey. For me, they're one and the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't feel like I can personally develop without developing spiritually.
Right.
I mean, that's the way I look at it. You might say, well, that's debatable. But for me, they're one and the same. And in fact, the spiritual development is very, very, for me, it's essential. I don't consider that if I have personal development, really, if I haven't spiritually developed. And
but are they different, or are they the same for you? Or is it more like one is more important than the other?
No, they're one and the same.
Got it.
They're definitely strongly interconnected. So much so that I would say that they're pretty much one and the same.
Got it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so how does that bear out in your life? What does that look like for you?
That looks at me always wanting to develop my my ability to operate more out of my higher self and my higher consciousness in all areas of my life. To connect more with who I am in the divine essence of who I am. I want to always be able to tune in more to that and my connection to this whole great scheme of life, rather than just look at it myself as this one individual, this little point in life that stands alone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for that. That's awesome. Who else has something to share? Who has an opinion about this?
I have something, Dr. Monikah. How I'm seeing it is more under the personal umbrella. For me, is different. It's two different things. That the spiritual development and that personal development are different, but they are under the umbrella. Like the spiritual is part of the personal development. I see it as you as an individual progressing, advancing in the world. You have a spiritual pillar. You have a health pillar. You have a friend. So that spiritual pillar is part of the umbrella. That's how I see it. That's how I compartmentalize it in my head.
You said it better than me. That's kind of what I meant. That's kind of what I meant.
Yeah. So, but you work differently, because when you are advancing and developing your spiritual connection, you are moving forward towards someone, and that spiritual aspect of your personal life can help you with development tasks or things that you want to do. That's how I'm seeing it.
Yes, right. I love what you're saying here, both of you, because part of what has made me a better leader in my business and in even personal friendships, even in my own personal life, whenever I have had any kind of challenge, for example, I experienced a lot of death in 2021. A lot of people, beloved people, including my father, passed away in 2021. And had I not had the spiritual grounding that I have, I wouldn't have been a responsible and present person in my business and been able to be present and emotionally available with my family, not only for them, but also just for myself, to be able to ask for what I need, to make requests, to be a powerful stand for certain, ways in which we connected with one another. Because under crisis, now this is something that I really love about learning multiple languages. Crisis, that word in Chinese, it has two characters. The characters are danger and opportunity. And those two characters put together make up the word crisis in Chinese. And I thought, well, how brilliant that is, because that's kind of how I felt. I felt like my peace of mind was in danger. The dynamics between my mother and myself, or my brother or my sister and myself, was in danger. The trust and reliability that a lot of my business colleagues have come to expect of me, and that I've prided myself in having as part of my brand, has also come in danger because I'm under so much stress. And yet there was an opportunity. There was an opportunity to be vulnerable. There was an opportunity to make powerful requests. There was an opportunity to extend deadlines, something that would have taken me a week to handle. You might need to wait a month, maybe. And then be happily surprised and impressed when I got it to you in 2 weeks or something like that, so that you can then manage your life in a way that allows you the space to grow, the space to heal, the space to breathe, but also still handle things responsibly. We're still adulting. This is still the adulthood, the worst hood in the neighborhood, but still, we still live here in adulthood, right? And so part of the challenge, I think, in terms of personal development and spiritual enlightenment, or unfoldment, I'll call it, because sometimes enlightenment feels like a little too lofty a goal. Part of the challenge is that we live in a society that likes process, outcome, process, outcome, process, outcome, very linear, right? And yet, that's not how life works. That's not how it bears out. Sometimes you have one lesson and it's like a spiral, right? Or a staircase where, sometimes you go up certain levels of steps and then there's a landing, and you rest and you regroup and you keep climbing, but it's the same lesson. And sometimes we get frustrated with that. It's like, I thought I was done with this. I thought I graduated from this lesson about, a childhood wound, or my tendency to judge, or my tendency to procrastinate, or imposter syndrome, or this and the third. And I thought, maybe if I get enough degrees, maybe if I have enough papers that I've published, or books that I've authored, or, accolades that I have accumulated, then perhaps the imposter syndrome would go away. And then it turns out that the more of those things that you accumulate, the more sometimes that the imposter syndrome shows up, as an example. And what I have discovered, the challenge is that it's not so much a one and done kind of, I'm cooked, I'm done with this lesson piece, but rather you go deeper in it, and it's a nuance, and that eventually you make your peace with your own imperfections and allow them to be part of your strategy, allow them to be part of your special sauce, the way that you show up in the world. So one of my specific nuances that I used to consider a flaw, I no longer do, is that I am a big picture thinker, that I can be very good about capturing the eagle's eye view of something and get it to granular steps, but I'm not necessarily the one to actually execute it on the field, right? I'm not somebody's foot soldier. I'm not even my own foot soldier. I'll need people for that. And so I used to have that as a flaw, because sometimes when people would they want a step-by-step of how to do what to do, especially when you're coaching with someone, right? And sometimes the level of accountability that somebody wants is somebody right beside them to do it with them. That's not my ministry, baby. I can tell you what to do. We can develop the strategy, and we have pretty charts and spreadsheets and calendars and color-coded and project management and Gantt charts and the whole nine, and it's gonna look real cute. But you're gonna need somebody to be in here to actually do it. If it's not you, it's certainly not gonna be me. And you have to move from thinking that something that you don't do is a flaw or something missing in the way that you show up in the world, and see it more like, how can I leverage this? How can this actually be a strength for me? And when I gave up the need to be a foot soldier, then I could be a better captain, I could be a better leader, I could be a better strategist, right? And perhaps you have a skill or a way of being that for you comes very naturally, and you think that sometimes you have to complement it with something else that you don't have. And I just want to disabuse you of that notion that you were created in a particular way for a particular reason. That wasn't a mistake. That wasn't like a glitch in the matrix, that you think a particular way or that you have a particular gift or talent in your toolbox, as it were. But I'm curious, of the talents and skills and gifts that you have, which ones did you have it like, maybe this is a liability, and it took you a minute to grow to the point of acceptance and then leveraging it to be something to be reckoned with? What are some of the things that make you you, that at first you thought, this is a flaw, or this is a liability, and now you come to understand it differently? Who has something? Yes, Laura.
Good
Hi.
morning. I'll play with you this morning.
Yes, play with me.
Like you have been a great foot soldier. I can
Mhm.
see pictures for everybody. I can tell them what to do, how to do, but I'm not doing it for myself. And I have like friends, family, who would call upon me seeking advice. So I was always sharing. I share everything. I just share. I
Mhm.
just share. And then I start to think that, how am I doing this for everybody else?
Mhm.
Yes, there was a point in my life where I would do things for myself, but then came a point in my life now where I think getting burnt out from work, doing things, it's like I lost my mojo.
Mhm.
But I still find myself sharing info, telling people how to do. But right now, well, you spoke about spirituality. As I've made my decision, and I think the right decision, to go within, get out of the intellectualizing, get out of my head and go within. To It's like an integration or embodiment process.
Mhm.
And I find myself embodying spirit. I find my life changing exponentially. I would read Louise Hay's affirmations every morning, the yearly. And then suddenly I find myself in a Louise Hay's study group, just like that. And things just keep falling in place. And I'm praying that, well, divine intelligence or the universe is conspiring with me to
Yes.
take me, and I'm aware of that more now. So that's where I'm at this point. Thank you.
Awesome. 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 Good stuff. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
And so part of who else has something? Who else wants to share?
Florence.
Hello, Florence.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning.
Wow, I was was in bed, and just what happens, like I wasn't on this on the daily huddle for the week, but then this morning I just thought, you have to get on the daily huddle. But just before I woke up, I was having this kind of, but I mean, just before I got up, I was having the same kind of conversation in my head. And many times I come on the daily huddle, I have had this experience where I've had that conversation, a kind of conversation in my head, like in a meditation just before I get up. And there is that conversation happening on the daily huddle.
Look at there.
Yes, yes. And I was wondering if you are going to be there on the day. Like you came into my mind this morning. I said, but she comes on Thursdays many times, but today's Friday.
Well, look at you.
Anyway. But this is such a very interesting conversation because I was actually in this place of stillness. And when you were talking about whether they're one, whether, the spirit is one, and, the conversation you had in the beginning.
Sure.
I said, I was dealing with stillness because I received this message just before the pandemic of being still. Now, what I have been grappling with is, should I be still and not speak less? Or should I just be still in the way of peace, of just peace within me? Because I believe that in the stillness is where the power is. So which stillness am I supposed to be embodying? Is it speaking, or is it listening? Is it just being still in the mind? But I feel that they're one. That in like, okay, you have to be still to listen. You have to be in peace to really hear. You have to, it's like you come from stillness, but in the stillness, there is power. So I came right back to even the minute of the moment of us being a sperm, being like, from everything. Like I feel that there was a moment of stillness. And in that stillness, we were born. So I connect everything in that stillness to, to just being one, in peace, in love, in joy, in God. And I feel that it's not, well, this is my experience, it's not really separate. It's just different aspects of the same thing.
Yeah. Wow. Good stuff. That's really deep, Florence. And I'm glad that we were able to connect today. I love it. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. And one of the things that I appreciate about what you're saying is that I think sometimes again, because in this culture, we're so used to running, and that productivity is the metric of success, and productivity is measured by activity. And so if you're busy and you're running and you have multiple projects and you're doing this and you're doing that, then, oh, you're productive, you must be successful. And one of the things that I have found is that just like in music, there are notes, and then there's the silence and the tension between the notes. And that silence makes the music even more than the notes themselves. If you were to run note after note and not create some kind of tension by inserting a pause or by inserting a delay, then it would just be a gobbledygook. It would just be like, just something on like 10x speed, right? But the pauses and the silence and the valley in the middle will give it texture, will give it space, will give it breathing room. Just like how when you open a good bottle of wine and just kind of let it breathe a little. And so it's the same with our process, that it's like, yes, Laura says we need the gap. Absolutely. Good stuff. Cece, your hand is up. Come on up.
Oh, good morning. I came on a little late, but what I am gleaning from the conversation is that I am identifying the weaknesses in my thinking, which is, since I am identifying it, it's really becoming a strength. And so I'm being vulnerable and open and learning how to request for help and do it in the stillness, the calmness, and listening, and the peace that is deposited in me from listening, from resting, from being still. I am receiving the joy that comes from listening and being still. So I'm looking at myself from a different view that I normally do, and not just do the regular routine, because everybody's combination to receive those blessings is different. Like, I don't say, well, I'm going to meditate today for 10 minutes and I'll get everything that I'm supposed to get. Sometimes I will have to change environments, change how I do things, so it just doesn't become a monotonous routine. It becomes something that I'm growing more and more each day, and not so and so like a procedure. So if that says anything, I hope.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. One of the things that I hear from what you're saying, Cece, is that there's a dance between the goal or outcome or the linear thinking, but also just the process itself, the spiral, the next leveling, the going deeper or higher. Because sometimes there's some processes that are not linear. Some stuff you're just gonna have to sit in, and there's no movement in it. And it's the longer you sit in it, the more progress that you make because of the stillness. And those things come from within. They don't come from external validation or external achievements, et cetera, et cetera. And then there are some that is like, no, you gotta get your butt up and go walk, go handle something, go have a conversation, go make something happen. And it's not an either or. It's a dance between these two things. Just like we have a dance between our masculine and our feminine energies, we have our dance between our logic and our intuition. We have our dance between our thoughts and our emotions. In the same way, we have a dance between our internal and our external processes. So I love what you're sharing here. It's kind of becoming bilingual in a way.
I love.
Thank you so much, everybody, for being here, for sharing and being in this conversation, being willing to play with me and going deep on it. Anybody have anything else to say before we wrap up? You're dying to get it off your chest. Come on, you got something. This is the time. Any resources for the disabled or the elderly? Well, it depends, right? Because some people, the disability may be sight, in which case you might want something like a book in Braille or an audio. Some people have an audio disability, and so in which case you want something that's hard copy, right? And in terms of the elderly, I'm not sure what kind of support or resources you may necessarily be talking about. But in the sense of, attorney for the disabled, yeah, good stuff. These are direct messages, by the way. Nobody else is seeing them, just so you know. So in terms of where you can go to get started on this journey or to deepen your journey, here's some books that I would recommend. And I'm not sure if that's where you were going, Cece, but that's where I'm picking up the baton. One of the books that I read this back when I was in college, and it's The Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield. And it opened my eyes to see that there are different layers of reality that are happening at the same time. And you know how sometimes when you're a child, you kind of know that instinctively, but then you just grow up and kind of forget. And people poo-poo you for having imaginary friends instead of actually celebrating the idea that you have access to your imagination. So the Celestine Prophecy allowed me to see that I could play in the energetic fields of my reality and not just the physical. Another one is Conversations with God by Neale Donald Walsch. The trilogy, I would recommend the trilogy. Book name in the chat, please. Okay. Now I want you to know that you're putting those messages in there in direct message to me. Nobody else can see them. So I'm gonna write them in the chat. The Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield and Conversations with God by Neale Donald Walsch. Those are two resources that I highly recommend. And then there's one that you don't have to buy anything or do anything about. Here's a very handy dandy resource, and that is set a timer for yourself, 5, 10, 15, 30 minutes, even 60 minutes if you dare. And sit down, maybe on the floor, maybe on your bed. I don't want it to be a napitation. I want it to be a meditation, okay? And sometimes when we sit there long enough, we just fall asleep because we're so daggone burned out. So sit in a way where you can just close your eyes and just notice your breathing. And that's all you're doing, just noticing. Meditation isn't about going completely empty. It's just about giving yourself enough room to notice. Notice what's happening in your body. Notice if you have a pain here or a stretch there, how you're breathing, what you're thinking about. You just become your own observer. And, you know, for people who may not necessarily have experience in meditation, try it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Go for as long as an hour if you wish. But the practice is about becoming an observer, because what this does is that it allows you to participate in your life. There's a part of you that is a participant in your life, and then there's a part of you that is observing you participate in your life. That part is unbothered, is unchallenged, is unmitigated by any of the vicissitudes and the challenges that you might go through. And when you can connect to being the observer as opposed to just the character, then you can change the story more easily. Romeo's destiny is his demise in that story. But when you're Shakespeare, you have the pen in your hand and you can write a different story. And that's the blessing that you get from being the observer of your own life. So thank you everybody for being here. I appreciate you sharing with me and playing with me. I love that we can all come together in the Daily Huddle. We've created such an amazing community. Remember to love generously, laugh loudly, give of yourself, your time, your energy, your attention, your money. Cash at me $20. Sleep at least 7 hours, stress less, eat more plant-based food. Of course, move your body, shake your tail feather. Know that when you're twerking, you're actually raising the Kundalini energy, honey. You're not being vulgar. And then as always, check yourself before you wreck yourself, audit your assumptions. Thank you everybody for being here. See you next time.
Thank you. Excellent job.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you.